I wanted to do this video originally as a video essay, but as I started writing, I found that I was having a really hard time articulating myself, even though I have a lot of things to say. So maybe this topic just isn't that great for the structure of a video essay. So I'm willing to try to do my best here to explain what I'm talking about. So when I was growing up, and for my late teen years, and then probably through my mid 20s, I bought into and was under the influence of a Christian cosmology, a theistic cosmology. And an element of that cosmology is this idea that human beings are kind of like the pinnacle of creation, right? That we are at the top of the pyramid in the natural world, that we are these beings of rationality and intelligence and logic. And what I've grown to find as I've gotten older is that this core belief isn't really a feature of just a Christian cosmology or even a broader theistic cosmology. It's really the cosmology. It's part of the cosmology of almost all human beings, I think, across all cultures, economic systems, religions. I think this is a core belief of most of humanity. And I just don't know how else to say it. This just doesn't hold up to scrutiny, right? This idea that this idea that we are these rational, intelligent beings, kind of unaffected by influence, kind of existing in a vacuum, that do the right thing and make the right choices and think about things logically and do what makes the most sense. um this just isn't real, and it doesn't hold up to scrutiny, and yet we all walk around as if it is real. And this idea that I'm not, for most of my life, um I carried it too, and it created a lot of cognitive dissonance in me, to be honest. When you really believe that, and then you go through life experiencing the exact opposite, experiencing how people are irrational, illogical, you know, most of the time, the vast majority of the time, when you experience firsthand how most people are just animalistic, people are abusive, people are short sighted, people are fucking dumb, people are not loving, not rational, not doing what's right in almost 100% of the time. And it creates this cognitive dissonance in people, at least some of us. And there are people out there who consider themselves modern and enlightened because they don't believe in religion. They believe in simulation theory. And I think this simulation theory stuff has the exact same problem. It has this worldview that centers humans as the pinnacle of creation, and they think that we are some kind of higher being that is jacked into this simulated reality. And the idea basically is that, like, reality as we know it is basically the most advanced video game that one could possibly imagine. And like this world is basically like a server. And again, the implication then is that we are these higher beings. We are these higher beings of vast intelligence and logic and rationality, and we are jacked into this reality. Does anybody actually think that through? Do you, when you are looking at a, I don't know, 65-year-old meth head living in a trailer park after a lifetime of drug and alcohol abuse, probably completely overloaded with debt, probably racist, bigoted, simple-minded, drinks Bud Light every day or Budweiser or Chud Light or whatever it is. Does anybody look at that person and think, wow, this is clearly a higher being that is jacked into this reality? No, people don't think about it like that. People don't, when they talk about these cosmologies, these theories, these worldviews, they're not thinking holistically and broadly. They are thinking pretty much only about themselves in a vacuum. They're like, yes, it is plausible that I am a fifth dimensional being jacked into this reality. Yes, that makes sense. This is a simulation universe. This world is a server. I'm a higher, enlightened, rational, intelligent being, and the world is my playground. But what about the starving African child that's 3 years old, dying on a dirt floor covered in flies? Is that still part of your simulation theory? Why would enlightened beings, higher beings, design a server, a game server, where that type of thing happens? And maybe in this instance, you can rationalize it. You can reduce it and rationalize it by saying, oh, well, the child is starving because of human actions. And, you know, the server's rules are include free will. Or if you're talking about it from the Christian cosmology, God doesn't interfere with free will. So the child is starving because of human actions. Okay, let's go to something that doesn't involve humans causing suffering. What about brain-eating parasites? Why would God or a universe simulator, the creator of the simulation, design that into the simulation or design that into God's created realm? That doesn't make any sense. Why would pediatric cancer exist? Okay, it's a simulated reality. So the fifth dimensional being plugs into the simulated reality to experience life again or whatever, or to rediscover themselves in a new dimension, whatever the purpose of that could be. So they go in to the simulated reality, and then at 3 years old, they get pediatric cancer and die, and they're booted out of the simulated reality. That doesn't make any sense. Or if you're God, and the idea is like, you know, the cosmologies of simulation theory and the cosmologies of Christianity are very overlapping. You know, I don't think that the simulation theory people even realize how completely influenced by Christianity that they are. But I digress. But so if you're a God, and the idea is, okay, I'm going to create this world. I'm going to send these souls there to test them and to decide, you know, whether they get to go to heaven or to hell. But I'm going to test them in this world that I have created. Oh, just kidding. You were born and you got a brain-eating parasite at 2, or you got pediatric leukemia at 4. Where was the test? That isn't the type of reality you would design if you were designing one. When we design video game virtual realities, we don't design them with those sorts of things. It doesn't make any sense. Imagine you play a game where you create a character, and as soon as the game starts, some random act of nature kills you 30 seconds in. You wouldn't design a game like that. You would design a game to be flat and fair, for the rules to be universal, for everyone to have an equal shot. By flat, I don't mean uninteresting. I just mean that the range of experience would be more evenly distributed across the entire server. Why would you set up a simulated reality where a tiny number of people, you know, get to live the ideal existence, and then the vast majority suffer and pediatric cancer exists? and brain-eating parasites exist, and parasites that crawl up your dick while you're in a river and embed themselves in you, that exists. Those aren't the sorts of things you design into a simulated reality. People that are proponents of simulation theory, I think almost universally have main character syndrome, right? I mean, it's almost implied. It's almost reductive to say that someone who believes in simulation theory has main character syndrome, because if you believe in simulation theory, then it implies that you are a character in that simulation. And from your worldview, you must be the main character, right? And again, this is not too dissimilar from Christianity. The idea that you would have a personal relationship with the creator of the universe, the idea that the creator of the universe cares about you personally, deeply, and lovingly. I'm sorry, this just reeks of main character syndrome. Again, all we have to do is look, if we are the best example we have of intelligent life, then we need to draw on that more. We need to look at our own actions and kind of scale them forward and advance them forward and kind of ponder, okay, what would humans do if they were more advanced, more technologically sophisticated? But we don't do that. We just kind of come up with these thought-canceling cliches and reductive theorems, and we really don't think things through from the perspective, like when we're looking at these religions or when we're thinking about simulation theory, we're looking at it through the lens of fantasy instead of thinking, okay, well, I'm an intelligent being. I believe in this God that's supposed to be, a more intelligent being than me, or the most intelligent being. How might our actions be similar? After all, man was created in the image of God, right? But yet, when considering how God acts and thinks, human beings don't factor in their own characteristics into that equation at all. So what I'm getting at with that is this. But when we have software engineers that create video games, okay, think about it like this. How many video games exist? Thousands? Tens of thousands? In these video games, there's what we call NPCs, right? Non-player characters. Characters that are generated by the software, by the game. Do you think that the software developers and engineers that created these games have personal relationships with the NPCs in these video games? Do you think that the lead developer of Cyberpunk 2077 cares deeply and personally about the lives of the NPCs in Night City? Does that make sense to you? No, it doesn't. The developers that made Cyberpunk don't think twice, or ever. They don't ever think about NPCs in their video games as being worthy of love and care and personal relationship. They're not capable of having a personal relationship with these NPCs. You see the parallel here? Human beings don't act the way that you describe your God as acting, but we are made in their image according to your own belief. I would just really appreciate having more adults in the conversation. I miss having deep conversations with people, and it just seems like so many of the ideas out there that people consider to be deep these days, like simulation theory. I know that every pseudo-intellectual on this planet, or at least in the Western world, ponders or believes in simulation theory. And it's just completely implausible on its face. I'm sorry. The idea that you are a higher being that, either through choice or through force went into this simulated reality, it just reeks of narcissism. It just reeks of main character syndrome. And it just reeks of an adolescent understanding of reality. It's reductive. It doesn't make any sense. It makes you feel good. It resonates with people emotionally. Maybe that's why it's getting talked about. Maybe that's why it's had so much staying power, like Christianity. It doesn't make sense on its face. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny, but it makes you feel good. The idea that, this life is not all that there is, that there's more to come after, that you're going to live forever, that the creator of the universe cares about you personally. It makes you feel good. But truth and making you feel good are not the same thing. Human beings are not these enlightened, rational, intelligent, higher beings walking around in a virtual server or a world created by a god who are just all operating under these universal, fair, and same rules. Everybody's operating under the same rules. Everything's fair. And we're just making choices. And those choices are going to determine whether, you get to go to heaven or to hell. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny. It doesn't hold up to my own lived experience. I do not find people to be rational. I do not look at the dregs of society and think to myself, wow, that's a fifth dimensional higher being right there. If you think simulation theory is real, I think there is a 95% chance you live in the West and not in an African or an East Asian hut. There's a really good chance you live in a safe, isolated white suburb, which, yeah, kind of does feel like a video game server. It's sterile, clean, universal. All the messiness of reality, all the messiness of society and humanity is cleansed and sterilized. But if you really, truly are a believer in simulation theory, I want you to go ahead and book a trip to Philadelphia. Spend some time in some of the urban areas around some of those underpasses where the homeless trank addicts gather, who walk around in a zombified state with their flesh melting off of them, literally, in many cases. Do you still, after that trip and after taking that in for yourself, you still think this is a simulated reality? What kind of sick fucking software engineer would design these features, would design brain-eating parasites, pediatric cancers, massive income inequality, America throwing out 50% of its food while suffering with an obesity crisis, while hundreds of millions starve? Ask yourself, if you were in the position of creating a fully simulated reality and universe, would you design that? Can you point to any video games that have features like that? Like dying right after you spawn and it's permadeath and you can't open the game again after that? That makes sense to you? It doesn't. People are terrified of the precarious situation that humanity finds itself in. People are terrified of contending with the nature of existence. People are terrified by the vastness of the cosmos. People are terrified by their own mortality. That's all that this is. Simulation theory is just Christianity for people that are too cool for Christianity. They're too modern, too enlightened. They don't believe in that ancient caveman stuff. So they just need to believe in a new secular cosmology that is 90% the same as Christianity, because that makes them feel good about themselves and it pacifies the existential dread that people feel about their mortality in the same way Christianity does. It pacifies the terror that they feel when they even slightly consider the true nature of reality and the position that humanity finds itself in, of being this slightly more evolved, slightly more intelligent monkey living on the surface of a speck of dust floating through infinite darkness. That's all it is. Simulation theory is Christianity for the modern secular man. And I would just really appreciate, once again, being able to have conversations. And not even that. I mean, I'm not entitled to anybody's time or conversation, but just to hear thoughts and ideas and other conversations circulating in the public discourse that are serious, that are actually thought provoking, that are actually profound, that actually make me consider new ideas about existence and reality and the universe. I haven't heard any profound or new ideas on those topics in a long time, because all of the energy is being eaten up by either, religious cultist zealots or proponents of simulation theory. I think that is all that I have to say on this topic. I hope this was at least coherent enough to digest and process, and take something out of it. I didn't, like I said, I was originally going to write this as an essay, and I just couldn't articulate myself well enough, and I just wanted to just start talking about it. The end result is that, like, I actually get my thoughts out, but the organization and coherence of those thoughts might not be 100% on point. But I hope you got something out of it anyway. I hope it might at least stimulate some conversation. If you have any thoughts about what I've said here today, I would love to hear it in the comment section. Really, this video is meant to spark a discourse. And yeah, I like it. I like the dialectic. I like the back and forth with people. I like hearing new ideas, as long as they're, coming from a good place, and it's not just some terminally online brain rotted debate edgelord. I like having good conversations with people.